Americans aren't liking the choice for president coming up. A majority don't want Donald Trump to run again, and 70% don't want Joe Biden to run for president again. Many of them are citing his age as the reason. The president's response? Watch me.
Well, this morning, his campaign released a video announcing his bid for the 2024 presidential election. CBN News White House correspondent Abigail Robertson has the details.
The president announcing his re-election bid 4 years to the day after he began his last run. In a video released this morning, he repeated his theme that there's a battle for the soul of America, and he's asking voters to help him finish the job he started.
That's why I'm running for re-election. Because I know America. I know we're good and decent people.
While it's still early in election season, the odds are good that 2024 will be a rematch of President Biden versus former President Donald Trump. Despite recent troubling poll numbers for the sitting president, 88% of Democrats stand ready to support their current leader.
This president has shown extraordinary leadership.
A new NBC poll reveals 70% of all Americans, including 51% of Democrats, don't want Biden to run again, with nearly half of respondents citing the 80-year-old president's age as the reason.
It's legitimate for people to raise issues about my age. It's totally legitimate to do that. And the only thing I can say is watch me.
While Robert Kennedy Jr. has announced he's running for the Democratic ticket, Nathan Gonzalez from Inside Elections tells CBN News he thinks it's unlikely Biden will face a major challenger in the primary.
There are some Democrats who maybe have concerns, but when they look around at who could be the alternative, there isn't an heir apparent. And so that brings Democrats back to Biden.
Adding Republicans see an opportunity in a Biden re-election bid, with voters concerned about issues like inflation in the economy, as well as the ongoing crisis on our southern border.
They see his polling numbers, that he's an unpopular president. He's the incumbent, which means he'll be held more responsible for the problems that are facing the country. But they also have to show that they can beat him. They've faced Biden once before, and they've come up short.
The NBC poll also revealed Biden's approval rating has dropped to 41% among all adults and 30% among independents.
Democrats are actually optimistic. I mean, they realize that his polling numbers aren't great, but he is the president of the United States. He won in 2020. Democrats overperformed in 2022 when he was in office, and they feel like he is their best candidate moving forward.
Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, President Biden spent most of 2020 campaigning on Zoom calls from his home in Delaware. This campaign will look very different from his last, as many Americans question whether or not Biden, the oldest American president, can physically and mentally handle another run. Reporting for CBN News, Abigail Robertson.
Well, joining us now for more is CBN News chief political analyst David Brody. So, David, voters seem to be concerned about his age and ability. What can Democrats do to convince the public he's up for the job?
It's going to be a tough road, Gordon. Look, it's kind of interesting. In Abigail's piece, we heard that, in essence, voters don't really want a Biden-Trump rematch. Well, guess what? That's exactly what we're going to most likely get, a Biden-Trump rematch. Look, Joe Biden said, watch me. He said, about his age, watch me. Well, voters have watched him. And even Democrats are saying, please, no mas. No more of this. And it's honestly, Gordon, it's been very tough to watch. So what is the strategy by Democrats? I mean, I guess pun intended, it's a bit of a mail-in strategy. And what I mean by that is mail-in ballots. I mean, the Democrats are very good at mail-in ballots. They're very good at legal ballot harvesting. In essence, what that means is call a ballot collection. You can go around and bring in a ballot for a family, friend, that type of situation. They're very good at it. And so that's the plan. The plan is to pretty much prop Biden up. They have no bench. They have nobody in the wings in the Democrat Party that can take on a Trump or any Republican at this point. So it's Biden or bust at this point. And so the way Biden gets a second term in the White House is the infrastructure, so to speak, behind him, which is mail-in balloting, ballot harvesting, and that's the game plan.
Well, part of the game plan is what you just identified, that they're essentially running against Trump again. And they're already talking. In his announcement, it just seems to be more of a warning. If not me, America is going to go down the tubes. Isn't Trump a gift to them to say, okay, here's the target, keep hitting the target, and you'll win again?
Yeah, no, there's 100%, Gordon, and that's the other part of the equation. I'm glad we got to it because it didn't fit at all in my first answer. But we'll do part two, which is Donald Trump, which, if you think about it, really is part one of all of this. Because if it wasn't Donald Trump potentially running and winning the Republican nomination in 2024, I think the calculus by Democrats would be very different. They believe that if Joe Biden can win a second term, he will win a second term because he's running against Donald Trump. I think that is a very dangerous game to play. I think Biden, as we saw in the poll numbers, is diminished. I think Donald Trump is actually elevated based on this indictment, as we've talked about, from a fundraising standpoint, from a poll standpoint, from a political martyr standpoint. I think he's going to attract more independents and soft Democrats. And so then the question is, where are we politically in 2024 as opposed to 2020? You know, in 2020, we had the pandemic, we had mail-in voting. Remember, in 2016, mail-in voting was about 25% or so of votes that came in. In 2020, it was 43%. It took a huge 18% jump. What is it going to look like in 2024? And can Republicans actually match Democrats when it comes to that mail-in voting? That will be key. There have been some changes. We can talk about that in another live shot as it relates to Arizona and Georgia, some key swing states that have toughened requirements for mail-in voting. That could make a difference and help Donald Trump if indeed this comes to fruition.
Let's talk about the vice president, because when you're 80 years old, the vice president becomes a key player. So is it going to be Vice President Harris, or do you see a change coming?
No, I don't think there's going to be a change at all. It's going to be Vice President Harris. She's obviously embattled as well. I mean, even Democrats have concerns. That's part of the reason that you're not going to see Kamala Harris running for president this time around. She's going to be with Joe Biden as vice president. And why is that? Because Democrats are not that thrilled with her either, and voters writ large are not too. But this is the ticket. They believe that they're running to save the democracy, to save the republic, to save America and the world and Western civilization from Donald Trump. That's basically why they're running, and it worked to a degree in 2020. We'll see what happens in 2024.
All right, well, let's turn to cable news. Don Lemon parted ways with CNN, or maybe the other way around. CNN parted ways with Don Lemon. Same thing with Fox News and Tucker Carlson. So, I think Tucker's a little more of a surprise. He was the highest rated host at the network. So what's behind the decision?
I think it was a confluence of things. We'll get more details as this starts to trickle out and we actually hear from Tucker Carlson. But look, I think we start with the no-brainer part of this, which is that Tucker Carlson did a lot on January 6th and provided an alternate version of what happened that day. Then, of course, the Dominion lawsuit that we know about as it relates to election integrity concerns and questions. So there's all of that as kind of a backdrop. And then there's this potential harassment lawsuit that's going on against Tucker Carlson and some of his staff as it relates to a toxic work environment as well. You combine all of that, not to mention the fact, let's remember, Gordon, in the Dominion lawsuit, Tucker Carlson very critical of top Fox execs in New York and the Murdoch family. So you put all of that together, and it just seems like it was an untenable situation. So we'll get a sense of the pie, in other words, the percentage of what was the most prevalent going forward. But I don't think there's any question about it that Fox wanted to, in essence, walk away from the toxicity of Tucker Carlson. And of course, in the process, they're going to lose a lot of viewers. And this civil war, if you will, and when I say civil war, I want to be clear, geographical civil war, informational civil war, media civil war. This is just another step in all of that we're seeing playing out.
Any prediction on where Tucker's going to land? Glenn Beck's already said, come on over to the Blaze. So is that where he's going to land, or do you see something else?
You know, Tucker has always been his own brand, his own independent brand, and his own, in essence, he appeals to a certain brand, a populist brand. So I would think that if he's going to land anywhere, he'll land right where he is, which is his own independent platform somehow, some way.
All right. Well, David, thanks for the insight and thanks for joining with us.